Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, and I have two co-hosts again on the show. I've got Eddie Richard, and I've got Thomas Harrington again. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be back again.
All right, and so we had them both on last time when we talked about the draft. We also talked about the situation with Eaves and Kesler and a little bit about the free agency, and we're going to talk about that again. We have a little bit of Ducks news. We have some of the qualifying offers that have been given out. The development camp is coming up as well. And we're basically going to talk about free agency, some of the stuff going on around the league in general. So we'll start off with the draft and how the Ducks did. They ended up with 7 picks in the draft. They went with their first pick was Isaac Lundstrom, which was one of the ones that Thomas did talk about. They had Oliver Grew was their second, McLaughlin was their third, Dostal fourth, Perbix is their fifth, Durney sixth, and Drew is their seventh. So they had 7 picks overall. They started out with centers, ended up getting a couple other forwards, a couple goalies, and a defenseman at the very end. Thomas, you wrote a lot of articles on this, which I appreciate. By the way, if I sound a little bit sick, it's because I've been sick this whole week, and Thomas helped out covering the draft with articles, and Eddie helped with the social media. So appreciate that, guys. But with the draft, what did you think, Thomas, in terms of the picks that the Ducks did? You did mention Lindstrom in one of your articles. What did you think how the Ducks went with their picks?
So their first pick, Isaac Lundstrom, based on everything I've read about him, based on how I've watched, for getting a player in the low to mid 20s, he's about as sure thing as you can of getting a future NHL player. He's never going to score 30 goals or get 80 points, but he's a future third-line center. I've seen a lot of people compare him to Cogliano, which we all know and love Cogs, the Iron Man. If he turns into the next Cogliano, that's a great thing for the Ducks. Their second pick, Grew, is another player, the second center they took in a row. He's got probably a little more offensive upside than Lundstrom does, but he's not as much of a sure thing to make it to the NHL. McLaughlin, there's actually a few people who had him as a late first round or early second round pick, so getting him in the third round, a lot of people think could end up being one of the steals of the first 3 rounds of this draft. He was in the USHL last year and was at about a point per game pace. He'll be in the NCAA this coming season at the University of Minnesota. Their second, third round pick, Dostal, he played in the Czech Republic this past season. And he actually was the top rated European goaltender going into this draft, but wasn't the first European goalie chosen. From what I've read about him, he's got a lot of raw talent, but has a long way to go to mold himself into a NHL goalie. So he's definitely one that's going to be a bit of a project. But between him and Ole Eriksson Ek, the goalie the Ducks chose last year, in the 5th round, the Ducks have a couple of good young European goalies. And either one could be a future potential backup to Gibson. Once we got into the 4th round and later, things get kind of just pick the best player you think is available and see what happens. Perbix last year played in high school, and in 25 games, 61 points, which is, it's a pretty absurd amount. It's over 2 points per game. He's going to be at Notre Dame next season, so it's interesting to see how that offensive game translates into college hockey. Hopefully, he won't be able to put up 2 points next season, but if he can be, a half point to a point per game player next season, that'd be great. Durney was the first pick that I was really surprised by that the Ducks made, just because taking a second goaltender on the day, I didn't think was necessarily needed. But I trust Anaheim's scouting department, so it's another good young goalie. He was in both Slovakia and the USHL last season, and it was in the USHL where he had pretty solid numbers. He also played at the World Juniors, so hopefully he'll be there again this coming season. and then their final pick, Hunter Drew, in the 6th round. And the Ducks didn't pick a defenseman at all in last season's draft. They only picked one in the 2016 draft, Josh Mahura. So I think they felt that they needed to take a defenseman with this final pick, and they felt that Hunter Drew was the best available defenseman. He doesn't have a huge offensive upside. He's more known for his physical play. He's an overage player. He's an overage drafted player, so he's already 19 years old. So could turn pro as early as a year from now.
Yeah, I thought the picks were pretty interesting. I mean, the Ducks went with a couple centers and forwards. Like you said, 2 goalies as well. So that was kind of a little bit of a curveball. I thought, that maybe they'd pick 1, but 2 is a little bit different. Eddie, what did you think about the Ducks picks?
I liked him. I think Murray kept it safe. Our first round, he's a well-rounded center. He's great. He's a great skater and ability to protect the puck. Bo is really intelligent and determined. He always gets in those dirty areas. Like, he does whatever you can to win. And what I like about him the most is he's been improving throughout the seasons. The first season with the QMJHL, he had 31 points in 62 games, and then he increased to 55 points. So you see that steadily increasing by him. He's born in France too, so that's pretty cool on my part. But he grew up in Canada. Dostal, what I read and I love about him is the word consistency. He's been consistent. He's smaller than the average goaltender, a butterfly goaltender, but he's really quick. And he full shooters. He'll get real low and make you think that top is open, but he gets his glove and blocker there really quick. So that's what I really like about him. Roman Durney, I think the reason why the Ducks picked him, and he was skipped over in the 2017 draft, but I think he got some recognition because he beat the defending U.S. champs in the World Juniors. He's had 43 saves out of 45 shots, and as a backup goalie too. And he really stole the show and really came in and performed to that thing. So he might be a silent sleeper. We can never know, but it's a good chance to take in the 5th round. And then Hunter Drew. Hunter Drew was a walk-on. He didn't even make the team when he went in his junior team. He has a good work ethic. He's really hard, tough physical player. He's more of a pass first, but he's been trying to get that offensive spring up more, and they use him to play against the other team's top line. So overall, I like every pick that we got. We kept it safe, and there's plenty of upside to each and every one of these players, and you never know if our 1st round draft pick can be a bust, and our 7th round could be our next superstar. You never know with this draft. But I do trust our scouts. I mean, look at our team and the players that they have scouted. So I leave it up to, the future.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you. You mentioned the scouting department of the Ducks, and we've obviously seen how they've done over the past few seasons. They've done well. So that's the draft class for the Ducks. Looks pretty good. Obviously, most likely none of them will play with the Ducks next season, but of course we're looking forward to them in the future. As far as the draft went, Thomas, were there any surprises overall looking at the draft that you thought that happened maybe in the 1st or 2nd round?
Just like we all expected the draft, and exactly as predicted, right? So Buffalo took Dahlin, Carolina took Svechnikov. Boom, no questions asked. Everyone surprised it. Montreal was the first one that surprised people when they took. I'm going to butcher his name. Kaniemi, I think is how you say it. He's a Finnish center. Montreal really, really wanted a center, despite the fact that there were two potential elite wingers in Kachuk and Zadina. But they wanted a center desperately, so they took a center. Based on everything I've read, everything I've seen, that's not necessarily a mistake, but it was not the best move to make. And then the other surprise was when Arizona took a 2nd center at 5th overall when they selected Barrett Hayton. Which surprised a lot of people, but also in reading about it, apparently a lot of other teams were really high on Hayton, including Chicago at 8. So Arizona was worried if they traded down, they wouldn't be able to get this player who they had absolutely fallen in love with. So they took him at 5 rather than trading down, which left Philip Zadina, who was a lot of people thought the 3rd best player in the draft, fell to 6th to Detroit. And that was, I've barely seen, Detroit has not been very happy with the last couple of seasons. This is the happiest they've been in a long time, grabbing him 6th overall. And a lot of people were wondering if a center would even be taken in the draft in the first 10 picks, and two ended up going in the first five, which caused a lot of other players to shift down the draft board. And the team that really benefited from this was the Islanders. At 11th overall, I got Oliver Wahlstrom. Um, I think it was 8, 9, 10 years ago. He was in a shootout competition as a kid and had a spectacular spinorama lacrosse style goal. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out on YouTube. It's amazing. So he was picked 11th overall. And then at 12th overall, the Islanders picked again, and they took defenseman Noah Dobson, one of the four or five best defensemen in this draft. So the Islanders were just ecstatic to see those two centers go early because two almost assuredly top 10 picks fell to them at 11 and 12.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Islanders definitely made out, especially in this draft, like you said early on. Eddie, what did you think? Some surprises? I know there was one player that wasn't happy about going in the second round that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, Bodie Wild. I was really surprised, and I'm by his face expression too. He was surprised by not going in the first round. I was actually shocked he didn't take in the first round. I had him going, when we talked last show, in the first round. I was also shocked and laughed about. You guys talked about Zadina. His quote. I was telling my agent, if they will pass on me, I'm going to fill their net with pucks. I want to prove to Detroit that they made a pretty good decision. I really like the swagger on this kid. He's real confident. I mean, he's borderline cocky, but he pretty much told the other teams, if you pass on me, I'm going to make you pay. I really like that. That was really funny. So, but the shocker for me was Bodie Wild for sure.
Yeah, I mean it was interesting, and I think you guys both mentioned it too. The Islanders and Detroit, they both did pretty good in this draft. So I mean, if there's any big time winners, I think they're the ones that came out on top in here. So after the draft, obviously the free agency is coming up. We'll get to that in a minute. The Ducks did make some qualifying offers, which we've kind of talked about some of these players. And what they did is they made qualifying offers to their RFAs, or the restricted free agents, and the list includes Richie, Cordelius, Montour, Kase, Walensky, and Kosela. And Thomas wrote an article on that. Any surprises there, Thomas? I mean, it's pretty much the names that we mentioned. We thought they were going to keep. Any comments about extending these qualifying offers?
So the Ducks had 7 RFAs. They gave all 7 qualifying offers. So we control our destiny, regardless of what happens in the future. Um, Montour and Kase are both likely to get bridge deals, maybe even long-term contracts if the Ducks feel confident enough in them. Richie, probably a short 1 or 2 year deal. Um, Cordelius, I was a little surprised to see Cordelius get the qualifying offer just because of the extensive injury history he's had over the last several seasons. I don't think he's had a professional year where he hasn't missed significant time to injury, which is really sad because he used to be one of my favorite Anaheim prospects. But at this point, he's looking like just a future AHL player, so I was wondering if the Ducks would choose to not qualify him and either A, let him walk, or B, sign him to an AHL only deal, but they still think he might have an AHL future, so it was great to see him get that offer. Um, Waugh and Kosela have been San Diego's best forward over the last couple seasons. I think Waugh has the higher skill level of the two, but Kosela has a more complete game. And then Walensky, of the players who spent most of last season in San Diego, so Walensky, Waugh, Kosela, and Cordelis, I think Walensky's of those four is the one who might get a one-way deal. If the Ducks think he's ready for a full-time NHL job next year on the bottom pairing. But if it is, it'll be a pretty short deal. I think he's looking at a two-way deal, and then maybe a one-way deal next summer if it's 1 year.
And Eddie, what did you think about the qualifying offers to the RFAs?
I think I mean, all the qualifying offers that they gave, we need those players. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Richie, but I mean, obviously qualifying him and getting into a contract makes him that much more valuable to other teams. Um, I think Kase and Montour get the one ways. I think they earned it, and I can see them being contributing factors to Anaheim's success next season, especially how they play. So that's my take on the qualifying offers that we gave.
Yeah, and as like Thomas talked about, the Ducks went out there and they gave the qualifying offers to, all of the RFAs. So that's good because obviously they're making sure that they're going to retain their rights and then, they can get them signed and go from there. The Ducks do have a lot of UFAs still on the board here. They have Derek Grant, Antoine Vermette, Chris Kelly, Jason Chimera, JT Brown, Bieksa, which we know is pretty much gone. And I mean, that's the top of the at least the rostered players from last season that the Ducks had as UFAs. They had a couple also in the minors too. They had Bowl, they had Liambus, Corey Trop as well. So they had some other players in there in the mix too. We did have a fan question, and I guess we can kind of take this one now, talking about if the Ducks would bring back Vermette based upon. I'm sorry, they asked about they'd bring back Grant, but also Vermette was one we talked about um, because of the Kesler situation. And I think this kind of goes also into the free agency stuff, which we'll talk about the Ducks, and we'll talk about what's going on around the league as well too. And we'll kind of start with Anaheim, obviously. But Thomas, what do you think? We talked about Kessler on the last show. Actually, it's been a big topic. I mean, he was in the news again. I'll get to Eric Stevens' article in a minute, but if Kessler is unable to go, do you think that the Ducks do try to extend some offers out to Grant or Vermette, or do you think maybe they go shopping in free agency or for a trade? What is your take on kind of where does Anaheim go right now? Because Kessler's up in the air with his status.
So, of the pending UFAs the Ducks have, I think Derek Grant is the one they're most likely to retain. He had the best season. He's the most valuable to the team. He's not going to cost very much. He can be not a great Kessler fill-in, but a Kessler fill-in as needed. I don't think Kessler's just play next season will impact Grant necessarily. I think that will more likely impact either a trade or a big free agent signing. I'm hoping Grant gets brought back though, just to fill that fourth line center role, be a mentor to Sam Steele or Kostela or any other young rookie who might be on the team, because he's just a great example of what hard work can get you in the NHL. I mean, he had not. I don't think he scored a goal in the NHL until last season when he was 27, 28 years old, and he had, 10, 12 goals in the season. So I think he's a great example to younger players to bring back. Vermette, he's great in the faceoffs. That's about it. I let him go. Same with Kelly. Same with Chimera. I like Brown a lot. He's a good fourth line winger. He's good on the PK. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back on a cheap 1-year deal to be that 13th forward. Healthy scratch most nights, but come in and play solid, safe hockey when needed. And yeah, you're right. BX is gone. Boschway's gone. And then for the San Diego players, the only one I really want brought back is Corey Trop. Outside of Kostler and Waugh, he's been one of their best forwards. He's really been the leader of that team ever since he was acquired a couple of years ago from, I think it was Chicago. So I would love to see him brought back and to just be the captain of the goals next season.
Yeah, I agree definitely on the Corey Trop. I mean, he's been doing well for San Diego down there, and like you said, I would like to see Derek Grant back too, regardless of the Kessler situation. Eddie, what do you think about the UFA situation? Who do you think the Ducks may try to bring back and let go?
I'm gonna grant with Thomas and yourself. Grant, I would like to see back. He has a great work ethic. His first goal, his first two goals were scored with the Ducks because that first one got overturned. It got waved off, but he scored his official second goal, if that makes sense, with the Ducks. He just always gives it his all. He knows he's not that superstar player. He knows his role with the team. And I think he'll really be a mentor and someone that the younger players can look up to is, when they have that drought or they're not scoring that first goal within the first few games, like just take a look at him and what he overcame and how he is now. And Brown knows his role, and he's a physical, gritty player, and he can put the puck in back of the net. And that's what we need. 1-year deal on both of them will be perfect for me. I wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on who the Ducks should bring back, and obviously we're going to see what's going to happen with that. We did get a little bit of an update on Kessler this last week, and we'll talk about that as we see who the Ducks want to go after in free agency. If you don't know already, Eric Stevens, he used to write for the Orange County Register. He now writes for the Athletic. And if you don't have a subscription, unfortunately, you can't read the articles that he puts out. But I do have one, so we'll kind of talk about this a little bit. But we all know that the big news of the summer was Kesler, whether or not he was going to play next season. Elliot Freeman had that article that went out. And I'm just going to read you part of this quote from GM Bob Murray when he talked to Eric Stevens, and we can kind of all laugh together and talk about it. And then we'll talk about the Ducks' free agent strategy. But yeah, Murray was asked, obviously, about Kesler and the situation, and he said that there's a concern level. Of course there is, but I think Kess has come out and said some things to a few people that if he feels as bad as he did this year, that he doesn't know if he can play anymore. Let's face it, he wasn't right this year, and he tried to gut his way out of it. So that's kind of the main part of the first quote, and nothing new there. But then the funny part is when he gets asked about Elliot Freeman's article, he says, at some point in time, if this continues and nothing gets better, but he's got to do right for him and his family. That's the bottom line here. As far as Elliot Freeman, keep throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what hits. So, I mean, you have to laugh at that. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. So, what I gather from this is it's still pretty much what we talked about. His situation is still up in the air. That the team hasn't come out and said anything. This is the most we've heard from Bob Murray. Obviously, it's pretty funny because he's not happy. Obviously, that Elliot Freeman said something, but that to the point that he said, well, he might not even play next season, which is something that we had talked about in this show that I heard from another source as well. So it's out there. Given that situation and given the free agency is obviously right around the corner, we're going to talk about who the Ducks go look at. I'll go with you, Thomas, first. What do you think as far as some players out there that the Ducks look for? Do you think that they do try to look for a center in the free agency or a trade? And if so, are there any names out there you think that we should keep an eye on?
So, the big center, of course, John Tavares. Let's accept that right now.
Sure.
The Ducks aren't getting him. It'd be nice, but it's not happening. There's a lot of players on the market. Paul Stastny, Joe Thornton, both of them would be nice, but I don't think Thornton's going to be here. I think Stastny's just going to get... He's not going to get $7 million again, but it's still going to be probably 5 or 6 plus. For a pretty lengthy period of time, I don't think the Ducks can afford him. The Ducks, they're going to look for... I don't want to say bargains, but they're going to look for players that can fit under the cap and not screw them up long term. So one name I've seen tossed around is Tyler Bodak. He's 32. He had 42 points last season. He made $4 million in salary and had a $4.2 million cap hit last year. So he will get a raise on that. Hopefully not a substantial one. But the player I've seen tossed around that I actually didn't think about until someone mentioned it is Riley Nash. He played for Boston last year. He put 41 points in 76 games. He was paid less than $1 million, so he's going to get a big raise on that. He plays both center and right wing. So I think 2-3 year deal, $2.5 to $3 million. I'd be pretty happy with that. And then another player who crossed my mind, although he'll probably get a larger contract because from the Cup, is Jay Beagle. He only had 22 points last season, but he's another player that could fit in on a checking line. He made less than $2 million. If you can get him for around that $2 million mark, he wouldn't be a bad target for the Ducks as well.
Yeah, the one that you brought up before we did the show, Riley Nash, that one I hadn't heard and was a surprise to me. But going by what you're talking about makes sense, especially because he can play 2 different positions, which definitely helps out the Ducks too. Because we also talked about Raquel and if he was going to have to play center or wing too, depending on what's going on with Kesler. So, of the names that you mentioned, I agree. That's one that it's kind of a sleeper, but I like that one because some of these bigger names, Thornton, Stastny, I agree. I don't see them coming to Anaheim. Eddie, what do you think? And the Tavares thing, we've kind of heard a little bit about that. I know you might want to talk some more about that, but as far as some of the names out there, what do you think in the center position for players that the Ducks might try to go after?
Well, obviously, John Tavares is a no-go. I mean, that'd be great to have him, but obviously we're not in a position to make a run for him, and he's not even meeting with us, so that scratch that. He did meet with the Sharks and the Dallas Stars for the most time. He spent 2 hours and about 15 minutes with them each, so that's something that Ducks fans should keep an eye on if he goes over there. I do like Stastny. I think he'd be great. He's great in the face-offs. He'd be a terrific third-line center. Borderline second-line center, but chances of getting him are really, really slim. Riley Nash, I do like. I like him. He made $900K last year. we could probably get him for under 3 million. He had 41 points, and he can be used in that bottom six role and possibly a top six role if needed. So that'd be a good one. Um, Mark Letestu was another one that I liked. He's 33 years old. He'll be a bottom six, maybe a fourth line center, but he has that physical grit. He can kill. He can be on the penalty kill and make things happen on there and shut down the other team's top lines as well with his physical play. He's not too tall. He's only 5'11", I believe, but I think he has some upside. And he made 1.8 million last year, so we could probably get him around that same projected, that money for this year. And he's great at faceoffs. He knows what he's doing. He's like a Vermette 2.0. So I think I'd take a look at him as well. And Bozak, he'd be great to have. Like, he might be a little bit too pricey. He might get more money by other teams that are kind of more desperate for that center position. So I think my main thing would be probably Riley Nash, like you guys talked about. We talked about before the show, and Mark Letestu would be another one.
And as far as other forwards out there besides centers, are there any names that come to mind, Thomas, that you think the Ducks should try to go after?
I mean, the best winger probably is Van Riemsdyk in Toronto. He had 54 points last season. Someone's going to throw stupid money at him, so probably a no-go. Thomas Vanek is 34. He actually had 56 points last year. He wouldn't be a bad option to get on a short 1 or 2 year deal to help Ducks on the power play. And then, of course, from Vegas, the former Duck David Perron is a free agent. He had 66 points last year. He was made less than $4 million. I think someone's going to give him a massive raise. Michael Grabner is probably the one winger who the Ducks are going to have their eye on, but he's another one who might get a massive raise. And then there was Tobias Reeder from LA. He was a restricted free agent. They didn't qualify him. He's now an unrestricted free agent. I've seen a lot of people be excited about him possibly coming to Anaheim, so he's one to keep an eye on as well.
Sounds good. I like the names that you're throwing out there. Some of the names that I looked at too, as far as coming back. I know some people did ask about Perron, that he was on the Ducks before. He's also one that could possibly help out in the power play. But like you said, the cost might be a little bit up there if someone's going to throw some money at him as well. It's funny seeing Van Riemsdyk on there. That's another name. Vanek, that's another name. Some of these names are kind of been recycled from before, so there's some similar names to look at again. Eddie, what do you think as far as some of those names Thomas threw out, or you have some other players in mind?
Yeah, I like them. David Perron, when he got traded to Anaheim, he played 28 games with us. He had 8 goals, 12 assists, total of 20 points. He clicked with the team. So, yeah, he might get more money elsewhere, but he might want to come back somewhere where he's more comfortable and stay in the Pacific Division if Vegas doesn't choose to re-sign him, which it doesn't look like they're going to. I mean, there's still a possibility we can get Perron on a decent deal, especially he had some, pretty good success with us. You can count out Devontae Smith-Pelly's name as he re-signed with Washington for a 1 year, $1 million deal. Another name, too, that I saw fans throwing out was Yakupov from Colorado. It's unfortunate for him that Edmonton, in my opinion, rushed him, and it kind of played in how he's not performing to his potential. But he was with a younger, faster, speedier team with Colorado, and it didn't really work out over there, so I can't see it working out in Anaheim with him. Another name, too, from Colorado that I would actually take a chance on, and he would fit Anaheim Ducks, would be Blake Comeau. He had 13 goals, 21 assists, 34 points in 79 games last season. He's a winger, left winger. He was used on the penalty kill, that gritty forward, and he can put up numbers, and he seems to make the line around him, especially the kids he was playing with. He made them better. And I know we're trying to get younger, but I think that would be a player that can mentor the younger kids and provide that leadership role for them, and just be that gritty and shut down forward that every team wants and needs.
Yeah, I agree. I like some of those that you're throwing out there as well. I mean, the Ducks definitely can add. I'm hoping that they add, a center and a wing. I don't know how it's going to go. We've seen some of the free agency, and the Ducks don't make as big of a splash as we think, but there's definitely room for us to get a couple forwards because we don't know exactly Eaves and Kesler's situation. We know Eaves is getting better. We talked about that on the last show. There was some social media posts. Of course, Kesler we talked about's up in the air. So I would definitely look forward to watching those names that you guys mentioned. Now, the other thing that did happen this week is that Corbinian Holzer was placed on waivers. He wasn't picked up, so obviously still with the Ducks. But do you think, Thomas, that the Ducks do try to go get anybody on defense? I mean, we've pretty much got a solid top four, but is there any names on there? Or do you think the Ducks strictly try to focus more on offense in this free agency?
I do think they go for defenseman. The one that catches my eye is Ian Cole. Um, he only had 20 points last season, made $2.5 million. He's only 29 years old though. I think he'd be a great bottom pairing veteran player. Because like I said, the top four is set: Fowler, Montour, Lindholm, Manson. That's a great top four. But the bottom pairing right now, it's a mixture of Walensky, Larson, Peterson, Holzer, Magna. Uh, I'd like a vet down there just to help solidify that bottom pair. I think you can get Ian Cole on a relatively cheap deal. Um, and hey, if he ends up not being great and two of the kids outperform him, he could be scratched and become that seventh defenseman, and two kids play above him. That could happen, but I just think a player like Ian Cole would work really well for the Ducks bottom pair.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we mentioned Ian Cole before. That's another name that I'm all for, and the Ducks going after. What do you think, Eddie, as far as the Ducks defense? Any names out there, or do you think that they more or less focus on offense instead?
I like Ian Cole too. I think he's a great insurance for the bottom six and won't cost us too much. I do like that. Another name that popped up was Thomas Hickey, but I read he was rumored to go to LA. So I don't know how the validity on that. We're gonna have to find out on the first. Um, I think we have enough of our prospects that can make that leap and can play that bottom six role and rotate. I do hope that whoever we get can have Holzer's mentality. Holzer knew his place. He knew he wasn't going to be used every single night, but he still had that motivation. And when he was in the lineup, even though his skill wasn't there on top, like, he gave it his all. So I really hope whoever we get to fill that bottom six, that they can just reflect his attitude and his work ethic. But I do like Ian Cole a lot. He's big. He's a little faster than the other vets that we had that were slower, which we all know what I'm talking about. And he's that stay-at-home defenseman, and he doesn't shy from shooting the puck too. If he gets that chance, he'll go out and shoot the puck, and he has a better shot too. So that would be a really good pickup, and that'd be a win and a good gamble for Anaheim to get him.
Yeah, I agree, and like we all said, so I think that's another big name to watch, and if he can come to Anaheim, that would help as well. Because like we said, the bottom two pairing has been a problem, as Thomas said. The Ducks have been rotating different players in. We saw what happened in the series against the Sharks. Sorry to bring up old bad memories, but we saw that and down the stretch too. I mean, the Ducks rotation of that last pairing was just not working. So I'd like to see them pick up somebody on defense as well. So I'd like to see them get, possibly a center and a defenseman. I mean, will it happen? We'll see. There's other stuff going on around the league too. There's other names that we talked about, and we know that our favorite team, the LA Kings, has been doing some stuff. And the Kovalchuk sweepstakes are over, Thomas. I know you weren't too big on them, but what did you think? The Kings ended up getting Kovalchuk, and that's all done with and out of the way. So, what's your feeling about that?
Kovalchuk, he's going to help LA's power play. No question about that. He's going to play next to Kopitar, one of the best playmakers in the league. He's going to score 20 goals next year minimum. He could hit 25. He could even hit 30. But he's also an older player. They signed him to a 3-year deal north of $6 million a season. So it's expensive. I think he'll be good, but not great this season. I'm not sure about years 2 and 3 though. But if they can get a power play specialist who pops 30 this season, they're gonna be pretty happy with that production.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I remember we talked about his age and the price and the term, and those are some of the issues. What did you think, Eddie, as far as that, and then any other moves that you want to talk about too in free agency that have been already going on or around the league?
I think they paid too much for him, and Kovalchuk did a great job on getting that number. And if I ever turn to, for some reason, if I just hone my skills and become a professional hockey player, I would love Kovalchuk as my agent because he got the maximum money that he does not deserve. LA is paying a lot of people over 30 a lot of money, and they only have about $3.18 million in cap space left. Um, it's going to be a gamble for them, and I really hope they lose that gamble. I hope the house wins this time for LA. Um, I can see him easily getting 20 goals, but that's just you just never know if Kopitar or Carter if are quick if they go down. I mean, pretty much LA goes down. Um, yeah, I mean, thank you LA for going and signing him for that 6.25 million. That's good for you and better for everyone in the league. But I think it's way too much still on him. Other news too. During the trade deadline, we had the Petretti news that he was supposed to. The rumor was supposed to be going to LA. I was reading, throughout, all the blogs and all the articles and rumors and stuff by analysts. Apparently, Petretti's got shut down because he didn't want to sign a quick extension with LA. So I don't know how true that is. And then he ended up firing his agent and getting someone else. Yeah, so I don't know how that is. But that should be in Bob Murray's mind that LA just signed Kovalchuk, and now they're trying to get Pacioretty. I mean, they're really gearing up, and they're really trying to get their firepower up. I know if they got Pacioretty, they have to make more moves because they really can't afford him with the cap space they have right now. But that should be something on Murray's mind to beef up the Ducks as well, because the Sharks are beefing up, and the Kings are beefing up, and we really haven't done much in Anaheim. And I know fans are frustrated, as myself. So we should be jumping on that. And other news, Ryan O'Reilly news, we talked about the show last time. There's supposed to be a trade in place, and they're linking him to the Blues. We're going to have to find out July 1st for that one. Jack Johnson is expected to sign with the Penguins in a 5-year deal come July 1st. Montreal was in discussions with LA for Voinov. I'm not sure how far along they are or how. I know there's mixed emotions with that, and like I mentioned before, if Voinov did come back to the NHL, I'm pretty sure there's going to be stipulations where there's going to be mandatory anger management and counseling, and for that issue. I'm glad I'm glad Anaheim, is not part of that. So that's cool. July 1st is going to be fun. I'm probably not going to sleep Saturday night because I'll be excited for July 1st again, just like I didn't really sleep coming into the draft because I was excited. So it's going to be a fun one to watch and see, what all these teams do. I really hope Anaheim is not one of those teams that just signs a couple 35-plus-year-old players, and we're just left right there where we see the Sharks and Kings getting better, and we're just not getting better. I really hope we do something.
Yeah, and we will have a show too. Not necessarily during the free agency, but we'll have one afterwards, and we'll talk about some of this stuff. But Thomas, what do you think about what's going on in the league right now? Any moves you want to talk about, or kind of what Eddie talked about? The Sharks and the Kings, they seem to get stronger, and then here we are, and we don't want to just sign certain average players to try to compete in the division again. So, what are your thoughts on what's been going on in the league as we approach the free agency?
So for the Sharks and Kings getting stronger, I'm not convinced they're necessarily better. They're certainly trying to get better. The Kane acquisition and then re-signing for that massive deal, and then the Kings adding Kovalchuk. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be better than they were last season, but they're trying to get better, and that's all you can really ask of a team's general manager. So I'm hoping Murray is active, but at the same time, I want him to be smart. I'm glad we didn't get Kovalchuk. I'm glad we didn't get Kane, and thank God we're not in on Voinov. I hope he stays out of the league personally.
Right.
There's no place for that. Period. And then Eddie mentioned the Jack Johnson deal. He's actually a player I was considering on defense for the Ducks, only in the right circumstances. And those circumstances are a cheap, short-term deal where he plays 15 minutes in the bottom pairing. I think that's where he can be very effective. But a 5-year deal, even at I think it's 3.5 million a season, that's too long. He's a decent player. He's not a great player, so I'm glad the Ducks are not the ones signing to such a long deal.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, especially the Voinov thing. I don't want him back in the league on any team, given what happened there. And I think you are right. I mean, it's yet to be seen if San Jose or LA have gotten better, but they're definitely trying. So that's what we're hoping that Murray will do, as we've talked about. Of course, the Kesler situation's up in the air, so we don't know if he's going to necessarily try to go for centers over forward, left or right wing, but definitely want to see them try and do something coming up. There are some events coming up too. If you know the development camp, the Ducks announced that it'll be coming up here on the actually this weekend. So you can see the Ducks. I know that they're going to have one scrimmage at Anaheim Ice on July 1st, so you can go watch that. And they're going to have some other practices, but they're closed unfortunately. So there's that to look forward to. And we did have some other league news as well. The Hockey Hall of Fame. They announced some inductees, and there's kind of some mixed reaction to this. I know we kind of laughed on some of this, some deserving, some I don't know, maybe not so much. But we can talk about that really quick as we round out the show here. They had Martin Brodeur was put in there, which well deserved. Martin St. Louis, he was thrown in there. Willie O'Ree, which we all agree was pretty much should have been done before. But I think when we're looking through these names, Thomas, I think we kind of chuckled at the one about Gary Bettman being put in there because he's still the commissioner. I thought that was pretty funny. But you had done some research on this, and it's not the first time it's happened.
Yeah, the Hockey Express, great article. So apparently, Clarence Campbell was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1966. Thing is, he was president of the league and was president for another 11 years before he retired. Um, John Ziegler was inducted in '87. He didn't retire for another 5 years. Jim Gregory, uh, who was actually the chairman of the selection committee, was inducted. Um, so there is precedent for Bettman being inducted while still on the job. Uh, Personally, I think that's a major mistake. Players can't be inducted until they retire, and 3 years have to have passed since their retirement. Um, the last time that was waived was Wayne Gretzky, and they said, Wayne, you're the greatest player. We will never waive that 3-year waiting period ever again. Marty Brodeur, arguably the best goaltender of all time, had to wait 3 years. Teemu Selanne, one of the greatest goal scorers and most popular players of all time, had to wait 3 years. Didn't matter who you were, you had to wait 3 years. And I think that's what they should do for every person, both player and builder, being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So, should Bettman be in there as commissioner of the league for since the early '90s? Yes, there's no question he has had a massive impact on the league, both good and bad. Um, he's expanded the game, he's grown the game substantially. He's also had several lockouts, and his stance on concussion and CET issues is pretty horrendous, frankly. Um, but there's no question the impact he's had on the game, and he should be in the Hall of Fame, but not right now. I'm not sure how old he is, but let's say he's on the job for another 5, 10 years. Great, let him finish his job, then induct him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you don't get any argument from me on that. I agree with you. What do you think, Eddie, as far as Bettman getting in there or any of the other Hall of Famers that got inducted?
I think he wait that period that you're supposed to wait. He's 66 years old. I'm pretty sure he'll be retiring shortly soon. Who knows if he's gonna go past 70? I don't know. Um, yeah, I mean he made some issues with hockey with the lockouts, but he has grown the sport, so we can give him that. And he's been the commissioner since '93. I mean, he's done a lot of positive things on top of the negatives, but it's more positive for growing the sport. But I think it shouldn't be waived for anyone but Gretzky, or if another player comes and actually earns and deserves that spot. So that's my take on that. And Willie O'Ree, I couldn't be more excited for him. He's a great ambassador for the sport. He has he goes and meets with different teams and their youth programs to try to pretty much promote hockey is for everyone, which hockey is. I mean, hockey has no color. I mean, the only color I don't like in hockey is an LA black and white or purple, whatever it chooses. That's the only way I can discriminate in hockey. But he's gonna be in it for sure. Like and he well deserved. It's great. I mean, 82-year-old and he's still traveling different cities, talking to kids, and just promoting the sport. I love to see that. It's great. He's the Jackie Robinson of hockey. And like I posted, if you follow my personal Twitter page, rgonzo444, let's make a movie about him. Like we need a lot more hockey movies. I think it'd be great to see a movie about him. And I'm pretty sure he had to go through some pain and a lot of barriers when he first started playing, just as well as Jackie Robinson did. So hopefully, someone picks up some movie rights and we can get another hockey movie going soon.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I mean, and you're right. We need more hockey movies, and I mean, why not have Willie O'Ree as one of the stories? I'm sure that would be, a great movie for sure. So, yeah, the NHL, they did their inductees, like we said. We're happy with most of them. Obviously, Bettman kind of weird, but that went in there, and I agree with you guys. He's still active, so it's kind of like you should kind of wait, just like the players do. So that's what happened this week, kind of around the league. One other little thing kind of came up too was the Utah Grizzlies. The Ducks ECHL team is actually now going to be affiliated with the Colorado Avalanche, which Eddie, you also helped cover Colorado, so kind of interesting thing there. I don't know if there's going to be a replacement, with the Ducks at that level, but kind of a small move, Eddie. The Ducks don't pull too much from there, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's going to help the Avalanche, another team that you help us cover.
Yeah, the Avalanche original ECHL team, the Eagles, are going to move up to the AHL, so they'll be going over there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I personally like when the Ducks and Avs do something together, or even in the same sentence. I kind of get that. Like, if I was a dog, my tail would be wagging 100 miles an hour. So that's going to be good. I'm pretty sure the Ducks will pick up someone soon. Maybe, hopefully before the start of the season. If not, get someone in the near future. Like, hockey's growing at a huge rate right now. Seattle's almost about to get a team soon, hopefully. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the news that basically rounds it out. For the Ducks, obviously we talked about free agency and who they could look at. The news going on around the league as well. Like I said, we'll have another show next week after the free agency. We'll see what happens. Hopefully the Ducks make some big moves. And before I wrap up the show, I just want to thank both you guys again for this week. I've been a little bit out of it. I might sound a little nasally on this show, unfortunately, but I appreciate you guys helping out. And let's go Ducks.